This is a sample video to show you what's inside my web-based Offshore the Watch online prep course. I've given you 3 options for access. 1 month if you've got a limited amount of time, 2 months to allow you to learn at your pace, and 3 months if you've got that little bit of extra time. Always good to have lots of time, possibly not too much, but enough for you. Everyone learns at different speeds. Once you have subscribed, you can then gain access. Inside, you have 34 hours of video. You have over 500 quiz questions. The Lights quiz has over 100. You have 340 pages of notes. The quizzes will always go up. As more questions evolve in the exam, I will add more quiz questions. This video today will be about the Large Yacht Code and a little bit on MLC. It's not one that you've seen before. So the way it works, you click on the topic and you then have a choice of play video, take the quiz, and view documents. So in the view documents, you're going to have my notes. Now they're beautiful, they're nice. It's important that you have notes that you can reference back to, make your own pictures as you go. So you can either print them or download them to your own device, so you can use an iPad or something. And I've also given you all of my reference material. So there's a copy of the Large Yacht Code. Yeah, which is very helpful, isn't it? If I'm talking about something in the video, you can access it on another device or alongside the screen. I then give you the videos themselves. So play video. A couple of features I want to just discuss. I know you know how to use a video player. On this version, you can actually speed me up to 2 times speed, or you could slow me down, whichever one you prefer. I also have given you the ability to choose the quality, so 1080 high definition, or if you're on a mobile device and using 4G, maybe you want to save some of your data, you can bring it down to 480, it'll be fine on an iPad, and 240 if you're on a VSAT connection in the middle of nowhere. I think that's nice actually. I'm hoping that's going to make it much easier for you to do this in remote locations. So I'm going to press play. At the end of the video, we will look at the quiz questions together. Large Yacht Code. Now, if I'd asked you on day 1 of these videos, what is the Large Yacht Code? I would have had terrible answers. I would have been told, oh, it's where you find the contents of a life raft. It's where you find all the equipment, you know, everything, SOLAS, it's everything. Oh, it's everything. It would have been a garbled mess. So now that we're halfway through, or 3/4 of the way through the system, I would hope that you have a slightly better understanding. So I have to confess that there has been a few changes. So Red Ensign Group, yeah, that's these guys, they have created a new Large Yacht Code, yeah, January 2019, and newer versions. So first question, I guess, is who is the Red Ensign Group? So if we Google them, who we are. The Red Ensign Group is a group of British shipping registers. Basically, they are the Red Ensigns, Isle of Man, Cayman Islands, Gibraltar, Anguilla, Falklands, Guernsey, Jersey, Montserrat. They are all the Red Ensign Group. Okay, they are all those British defaced Red Ensigns, which are now considered to be a British ship. Yeah, if we look at www.gov.uk, Red Ensign Group is a group of British shipping registries. The registries are operated by the UK, Crown Dependencies, UK Overseas, and any vessels on these registers is a British ship. LY3 was the same. There's nothing majorly different. Now, if at any point during the videos before or after this point, I have mentioned Large Yacht Code or LY3, I mean this code. There is no difference between LY2, LY3 and this on a day-to-day user's level. But who is this Large Yacht Code for? There's Part A, which is for Large Yacht Code for up to 12 passengers. And there is Part B. Part B is for passenger yacht code. So if you're doing an OOW Unlimited, you need to be aware of Part B. If you're doing a yacht, it means we cannot have more than 12 passengers. So I'm going to specialize into yacht. If you're doing any other course, make sure you're aware of A and B. If not, B is, well, not what we're doing. So today, Part A, what is it, who's it for, how's it done? If we go to Chapter 1, the application and interpretation. The purpose of Part A of the Red Ensign Group is to provide design criteria, construction standards, and other safety measures for yachts carrying no more than 12 passengers, so as to minimize the risk to such yachts, persons on board, and the environment. The criteria are largely aligned to the convention and instruments referred to. Basically, this is how a yacht complies with the relevant international conventions where it's not possible for a yacht to comply directly. It applies to boats over 24 meters engaged in commercial activities, carrying no cargo and less than 12 passengers. And apparently sail training vessels are included in this application. The contents of the Large Yacht Code. Chapter 1, application and interpretation, that's for international conventions. Application of national conventions and national legislation, how it is enforced in British law. And then it's going to be very similar to SOLAS. It is an interpretation of how a yacht is going to comply with all the relevant conventions. So construction and strength, watertight integrity, water freeing arrangements, machinery, electrical installations, bilge pumping, stability, come on to that later on. LSA, we've already covered. Yeah, we looked at it together. Fire safety. GMDSS, quite a big section, especially if you're going to Liverpool. The navigation equipment and visibility from the wheelhouse. So what equipment's meant to be in the bridge. So I would have mentioned in several videos LY3. So just interpret LY3 for Large Yacht Code. Anchors, cables, and then it has included MLC. That is a big change. So we're going to move on to what MLC is in a few minutes. ISM, move on to that later on. Safe manning, move on to that later on. And list of certificates to be issued under LY3 or Large Yacht Code. See, it's very easy. I may even be trying to update and saying LY3, but the Large Yacht Code. ISPS, how it's enforced. So basically, the Large Yacht Code is how we implement all the relevant international conventions and national legislation that ensures that a yacht is complying. I can draw a diagram if you want. So, looking at the screen, who is the daddy at the very top? The daddy at the very top is the IMO, isn't it? And they create conventions, which is an international agreement. So what conventions do they make? We have SOLAS, we have STCW, we have MARPOL, and then we have MLC, which is part of the International Labour Organization, the fourth pillar of it all. Now, these are international conventions. Sorry about my writing. One day I'm going to learn to write properly. 174 countries have agreed to comply with these. Yeah, so 174 countries, of which is the most important country? Which is the country in the centre of the world? The UK. So the UK, as part of 174 countries, has agreed to comply with SOLAS, making sure the boat is made safely, making sure it's got the appropriate LSA, fire equipment, it's been machinery, electrical equipment is there. STCW, making sure that all the officers are properly trained. All the crew have attended STCW approved training. MARPOL, making sure we're not throwing things over the side, not polluting the atmosphere, not polluting the environment. And MLC, making sure that everybody is happy. Everyone's got social welfare. Everyone is within their hours of work, rest and play. The UK then produces national law. So what law does the UK produce? It produces the Merchant Shipping Act 1995 currently. Now, the Merchant Shipping Act is how the UK enacts all the international regulations. So all of this international agreements that the UK has said, yes, we will do, yes, we will uphold, they enforce it via national legislation. That is then given to the Admiralty, the Navy, to enforce upon the fleet. So we have we'll call it Navy. We'll call it Navy. But it's the Admiralty. Now, the Navy is then split into the Royal Navy. That's the guys with guns. The Royal Fleet Auxiliary. They're the people who look after the guys with guns, give them petrol, diesel, fuel. And then the Merchant Navy. So we've got the Merchant Navy. That is you and I. You're in the Navy now. Oh, oh. Anyway, I won't sing. My writing's terrible. My singing is terrible. Within the Merchant Navy, we have the MCA. So the MCA are required to enforce national law. The UK is required to enforce international conventions, international law. So the UK makes sure it complies with international conventions, and the MCA then requests that its fleet comply via MSNs. That is mandatory information that must be complied with under UK legislation. We then have MGNs, that's Marine Guidance Notes, that gives instructions on how we could comply. So it's giving good guidance. It's basically a template. And MINS, Marine Information Notes, which is giving prior warning for a limited time to a limited audience. Now, LY3, LY2, they were MSNs. Now, the MCA will eventually, hopefully by now, produce an MSN enacting that the new Large Yacht Code will become law. It has met approval, as I say this now, for the international convention. So if a yacht is complying with the Large Yacht Code, it is said to be complying to the UK's Merchant Shipping Act. The Merchant Shipping Act is said to comply with the international conventions. So you and I, on a large yacht operating commercially, if we comply with the Large Yacht Code, we are complying to the point where it's relevant, possible, accepted to comply with the Merchant Shipping Act, British law. The British law has been accepted as complying to the internationally agreed conventions. So it's a bit like your driving test. Wherever you did your driving test, you did a hill start, you did a 3-point turn, you reversed round a corner, you had to do an emergency stop when the examiner hit the dashboard. It doesn't matter which country you're in, you all did the same thing. That is because we have all received an internationally accepted driving license, STCW. Yeah? When you did your driving test, your license, wherever it was complying with the Merchant Shipping Act, or the British or Australian or New Zealand or South African rules and regulations at a national level. But because we have done an internationally agreed driving license, I can drive in Australia, I can drive in America, I can drive in France, and so can you. Yeah, so if you are said to be complying with the Large Yacht Code, you are said to comply with the Merchant Shipping Act, which is said to comply with the international conventions to the way in which it's been accepted under international law. So everything that you and I do will be inside the Large Yacht Code. The new version, as I said, is much better than the old version. It is actually much easier to read. It's consolidated. It brings a lot of what used to be in M notices into one place. I think it's a great movement forwards. I think it is very user friendly, and I think it has helped immensely. What emergency training and drills should you do? See Annex C for requirements. Before, you had to comply with MGN 71. Now, if you work on a yacht, you will comply with Annex C. Now, Annex C, wherever she is a complete copy and paste of MGN 71. There is nothing different, but what it has done is stop you having to go to all the relevant MGNs, and instead it's consolidated it all in to this one user-friendly, teacher-friendly book. So please download a copy of the Large Yacht Code, make sure you have the most recent edition, and go through it, because it will help you for this exam. Anyway, MLC, an international convention. MLC 2006. The Maritime Labour Convention is an international labour organisation established in 2006 as the fourth pillar of international maritime law, and embodies all up-to-date standards of existing international maritime labour conventions and recommendations, as well as the fundamental principles to be found in other labour conventions. Yeah, I'm going to have a look at this system certification. It's a nice MLC 2006 pocket guide. Yeah, it's a very, very useful guide. What is Maritime Labour Convention? MLC is often called the fourth pillar of international maritime regulation regime because when it enters into force, it will exist alongside the well-known IMO conventions, SOLAS, MARPOL and STCW, that support quality shipping and help to eliminate substandard shipping. It is often referred to as the Seafarer's Bill of Rights. It can be described as an objective benchmark for decent working and living conditions for seafarers. A benchmark for decent working and living conditions for seafarers. Yeah? Do you remember how before we said the STCW code says that watch-keeping personnel must have a certain amount of time off? How many hours was it? 10? Yeah? 77 hours in any week. MLC makes sure that all seafarers have got the same amount of time off. Yeah, do you kind of see where it's coming from? This I like. This is a fantastic diagram. It really explains it. You've got the United Nations organization. So that's the UN. That's the guys with blue on with all the critical bits. Then underneath that you have the IMO, with SOLAS, MARPOL and STCW conventions. You then have the International Labour Organization. They're the ones who say that you've got to pay decent wages to have your shoes made in Vietnam, and little kids can't put their fingers inside machinery when it's running. They have very nimble fingers. And they produce MLC. So you have the United Nations at the top, they're the daddy. Then the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, and the International Labour Organization. What are the objectives of MLC? The new convention will set out seafarers' right to decent working and living conditions globally. This is hard work to do something globally. And when did MLC come into power? MLC was ratified by the UK on the 7th of August 2013, i.e. the UK went along and they signed on the dotted line that in 1 year's time we will have MLC in force. And it came into force on the 7th of August 2014. So MLC has been in force for a period of time now. Has it made any difference to your life at sea? Now, I'm going to guess you've had a new Seafarers Employment Agreement, but you should have had a crew agreement anyway before that. Your cabin, that hasn't changed, has it? You already had medical care. You already had more than the minimum amount of days off. Yeah. For you and I, it's not changed. So let's have a look at Google for a second together while I explain MLC in ways that you and I would understand. I'm going to type in British trains and I'm going to look at images, okay? Okay, so there is a British train. Yeah, and I'm pretty confident I could type in anything really for British trains or French trains, Italian trains. Let's have a go for French trains. Images. Yeah, SNCF, pretty cool. Let's type in New Zealand trains, images, much the same. Okay, so we have trains. Let's say that the general worldwide consensus would be that it would be safer if everyone inside a train wore a seatbelt. Let's have a look at New Zealand trains crash. Yeah, so there we are, Kiwi crash. I think it would be safer, or internationally we'll say that the international body, the UN, decide that it would be a good idea if everyone wore seatbelts on board trains. It would be a good idea, it's a fair plan. How would we do that globally? That is what MLC 2006 is trying to do, isn't it? To make a global change, a global difference. Because if I type in Indian trains, this is the images that I get for an Indian train. Yeah, so These are images of Indian trains. Now, except that it's got crowded up there, let's take that out. Indian trains. It comes up as being slightly overcrowded. So if we were going to try and have everyone in the world wear seatbelts, we'd actually have to start internationally at everyone should be inside the train. Yeah, and people shouldn't ride on the top of trains, especially when they're electric trains. Do you see the problem with an international, worldwide? So MLC is about setting out seafarers' right to decent working and living conditions, and to help globally improve the quality of seafarers' life at sea. Yeah. The code consists of 5 titles. The titles are minimum requirements for seafarers to work on a ship. The purpose of the 4 regulations of this title is to ensure that nobody under the prescribed minimum age works on board a ship. In addition, seafarers must be medically fit and well trained and qualified for the duties they are assigned to. Yeah, everyone needs to have an ENG1. Everyone needs to be properly certified and properly trained to be able to do what they're doing safely. Number 2, conditions of employment. These regulations ensure that all seafarers shall have fair employment agreements that provide them with adequate leave and entitlements to be repatriated. It requires that the wages are paid monthly and that seafarers shall have regulated hours of work and rest. Yeah. Now, all of this was in force before for the officers or watchkeeping personnel. It would not have been in force for the bar staff, for the laundry girls. You can see it on a larger cruise ship. You've got these officers who have been protected by the OOW Code, but you've got all these other workers on board who have no protection. This is what MLC has set about, is to make it a level playing field. Title 3, accommodation, recreational facilities, food and catering. Each seafarer has the right to decent and safe accommodation and recreational facilities. Requirements regarding free access to good food and drinking water are set out here as well. Number 4, health protection, medical care, welfare and social security protection. The purpose of these regulations are to protect seafarers' health and to ensure that they are working in safe, hygienic, well-found conditions. Compliance and enforcement. The title addresses the responsibilities of ratifying member states, that's the 173 countries who are a member of the UN, regarding the implementation and ensuring compliance and the enforcement of MLC 2006 requirements. So how does the UK enforce MLC? Well, MSN 1848. It's a merchant shipping notice. It's how the UK enforce international regulations. It's our interpretation of these international regulations. The MLC Convention requires ratifying states, ratifying people who have signed on the dot, to implement an inspection regime to ensure that the ships flying their flags comply with the national legislation which implements the MLC standards. For ships of 500 gross tons and over operating internationally, this regime must also provide for certification. For UK ships, currently a maritime labour certificate can only be issued by the MCA, the Maritime Coast Guard Agency. So I'm looking at the notes now here. This is taken all from MSN 1848. It is 57 pages long. I'm just going to give you 3 little flashcard points that you and I need to know. Vessels over 500 gross tons must have a certificate. They must be surveyed to make sure they are complying with MLC. I'm pretty sure a yacht you know, if here's the international level, a yacht is up here, yeah, if not way up. So it hasn't made any real difference to you and I at sea. An MLC certificate is valid for 5 years, subject to an intermediate inspection between the 2nd and 3rd year, after which the certificate may be endorsed. All ships, this is a clever bit, all ships, whether or not they require an MLC certificate, will be inspected twice within a 5-year period, and the inspections will, where appropriate, be conducted at the same time as ISM audits. So vessels less than 500 gross tons still will be inspected, and they can request a MCA certification to make their life that bit easier. It's about seafarers' employment agreements. And this has come into life because of the changes of MLC. Previously, we always required to have a crew agreement. Yeah, so let's have a look at crew agreements together. Crew agreements. I want to explain how it kind of all works. Now I'm going to be thinking pre-MLC, okay? Because we had an MGN 149, which was the approval of crew agreements for yachts. Where do these MGNs, what are they? They're giving guidance. What are they giving guidance on? They're giving guidance on British law, how to comply with British law. So what shipping act does British flags actually have to comply with? We actually have to comply with Merchant Shipping Act 1995. Yeah, so if I go to legislation.gov.uk, this is the Merchant Shipping Act 1995. Now I'm going to be zooming in as we move around on this, so please don't get confused. And this is the law. Yeah, this is the legislation. This is exactly what you and I must comply with if we are on a British flagged vessel. So part 1, British ships. Yeah. Registration, so duty to show a British flag. Registration, you must have registration. Masters and seamen. Part 3, masters and seamen. Engagement and discharge of crews. So 25. Crew agreements. Except as provided under subsection 5, an agreement in writing should be made between each person employed as a seaman on a United Kingdom ship and the persons employing him, and shall be signed by both him and by or on behalf of them. The agreement's made under this section, it goes on, doesn't it? All persons employed on a UK ship must have a crew agreement. It does say section 5. Section 5 may provide exemptions from the requirements in this section with respect to the description of the ship and respect to the description of the seaman as may be specified. Not everyone gets a crew agreement. They have employment contracts. A master of a ship has an employment contract because he can't make it a crew agreement to himself. And someone who's employed as a masseuse or a PA or a supernumerary, so they're employed by someone else whilst working on the ship, so a nanny for instance, they may not have a crew contract, they will have a contract of employment. That's just getting a bit fine though. Crew agreements. So we'll say pre-MLC, it's still there because we're still complying. MLC is actually based on British law. That's why it won't change very much for you or I. So let's do an experiment. I want you to write a crew agreement for you and someone else that you're going to employ. Go for it. What normally happens when I make this happen during the week is I give everyone a couple of bits of paper and I say, right, make a crew agreement. And after about 10 minutes, they look at me and they go, well, you're a bit mental. I go, well, what's wrong? Do you have a template? What do you want it to say? How do you want it to be written? What's to be in it? That is what an MGN is. So the law, the Merchant Shipping Act 1995, Section 25, states that everyone will have a crew agreement. In writing. It doesn't say how. We would all require the how, or what would you expect it to be? Can it be on the back of a cigarette packet? What exactly is this crew agreement? So this crew agreement, this guidance of what's to be inside our crew agreement is in the form of an MGN. It's giving guidance on how to comply with the law. And if we look together at MGN 149, a guidance note, you're going to see that it says what is to be in the crew agreement. Particulars on the front of the outer cover, the name of the ship, the port of registry, official number, registration, description of the ship, incorporation of contractual provisions, rates of pay, it's like giving you guidance, like a template on how to make a crew agreement. It then goes on to say conditions and procedures for standard agreement, submission of crew agreements, how often you're going to get paid wages, the method of calculating leave. It's like an MGN is basically giving you guidance on how to comply with this national law. It's then even giving you a template with crew agreement and list of crew. How nice is that? Contractual clauses, what needs to be in it? Signing on the articles, don't worry too much. And then summary, let's have a look at this one. Summary of the provisions of the Merchant Shipping Act and the Merchant Shipping and Fishing Vessels. No person under the school leaving age may be employed in any ship. That's quite important. We'll come back to that shortly. Where the young person under the age of 18 are employed in a ship, the appropriate measures shall be taken to protect them from the risks of their health and safety. A young person should be provided with a period of 12 hours in every 24 hour, and a rest period of 2 days in every week, and they're not allowed to work at night. Look at this. So an MGN gives guidance on how to comply with the international law. Kind of makes sense that now. So this was the original MGN, pre-MLC. The current guidance on how to comply with MLC is MGN 477. So this is the current guidance on how to comply with MLC for seafarers' employment agreements. The only thing that's different between MGN 477, the current seafarers' employment agreement, and MGN 149, approval of crew agreements, is they have now defined the age of school leaving as being 16. So MLC and everything is basically based on British law. That's why it hasn't affected us. I'm going to just sort of highlight the important bits from this. Application. I do expect you to have a little read of MGN 477 prior to your exam. But flashcard, or at least have a good idea of this bit. Application. Except for those vessels referred to in paragraph 3.2 below, the MLC minimum requirements apply to all seagoing UK ships wherever they may be, and to non-UK ships in UK waters. So any vessel, which MLC applies to, will have crew agreements. The MLC minimum requirements do not apply to pleasure vessels, fishing vessels, ships of traditional build, warships, or vessels which are not normally engaged in commercial activities. Duty to enter seafarer employment agreement. every seafarer working on a UK seagoing ship to which the MLC requirements must have a written seafarer's employment agreement. Yeah. Regulations apply must have a written SEA. All crew agreements must have a cover with details of the ship and its owner, an up-to-date crew list, a list of anyone on board who's under 18, contractual clauses, and crew agreements can last up to 12 months. After this period, a new agreement must be drawn up. What's going to be inside? Yeah, it sort of explains all of that. Yeah, information to be included. As I've just said, I've just shortened that to the bits I would remember. It's there in Annex 1. The clauses must include the name of the crew member, description of the journeys that the agreement relates to, the crew member's job description, details of their pay, hours and leave, and details of required notice. The MCA gives guidance on drawing it up, so it's MGN 477. So this is the template for a seafarer's employment agreement. So MGN 477 gives guidance on how to produce a seafarer's employment agreement. This will then be sent to the flag state to verify that they're happy with the agreement. There's very little different between that and the original seafarer's employment, crew contract. What happens then if you're on a vessel that's a private vessel? Well, MGN 474, retention of crew agreements for vessels not subject to MLC to have a seafarer's employment. This MGN provides information and guidance on the continuing requirement for crew agreements to be maintained on those UK seagoing ships and yachts which previously required to maintain them, which are not subject to MLC, but you still need to have a crew agreement. Everyone should have a crew agreement. Have a little look through it. It's more for your personal understanding. If he asked who does not need a crew agreement, it is supernumeraries, people who are not employed by the ship. Yeah? And the master doesn't tend to have a crew agreement. They would have a contract of employment. Good. We have finished LY3 and MLC. You've finished another video. So let's play the quiz. MLC is an international. Now I know it's labour. I've done these before. Correct. Green tick, very happy. Large Yacht Code is for yachts over 24 metres to what size? Now the correct answer was there's no upper limit, but let's just say 3,000 gross tons. That's what the Large Yacht Code 1. That was one of the differences between LY2. Incorrect. Oh my days. Fred's feedback. So it's nice. It's going to give you feedback so that you can hopefully learn from it and not make that mistake again. Next question. Where would you find the number of flares required for a yacht? Well, we're inside Large Yacht Code. That's what we're doing as a session, so I thought it was quite obvious. But Large Yacht Code, yes. Confirm answer correct. Now it's nice. Oh, what was that one we got wrong? Do you remember? Oh, we can go back using our question navigator and then we can see and get the feedback again. Ah, yes, that's what I forgot. Right, got to remember that down. The MLC certificate is valid for. Now that's quite important. Somebody recently got that wrong in an exam and they didn't get it right. It's 5 years it's valid for. That's how you prove that you're running an MLC compliance. Which code is the code that sets required standards of safety and pollution prevention which is appropriate to the size? MLC? No, it's LYC. If you're doing a non-yacht exam, you'd obviously have to look at the passenger code or the high-speed code or the workboat code. Concept is the same. The UK ratified the MLC on the 7th of August 2013, entered into force in, is it 2017? See? Oh no! Incorrect. The UK ratified the MLC on the 7th and it entered a year later. That was very quick, wasn't it? Last one. You are looking for the number of life jackets required for a commercial vessel under 24 meters. Now, Officer of the Watch syllabus says that you need to know this MGN. Now it's MGN 280. Did I get it right? Yes. Confirm the answer. Oh, I scored. What did I get? What did I get? Did I get 71%? Good effort. Good effort. I'm hoping this has given you an idea of what's inside my online new system and how it can help you pass your exam. I look forward to seeing you at one of my weekly webinars. Any questions, send me an email. I look forward to seeing you. Good luck.